Hanli vs Wen Tianren, a classic battle of the core formation realm. Welcome back to the Donghua family channel. In the vast cultivation world of A Record of a Mortal's Journey to Immortality, some battles are not decided by the highest realm, but by intelligence, strategy, and utter ruthlessness. Today, we will analyze such a classic magical battle, a confrontation that left the deepest impression on me personally, Hanli versus the man known as the #1 expert of the core formation realm in the scattered star seas, Wen Tianren. Although both sides were only at the core formation realm, the sheer intensity, the variety of treasures, and the spectacular reversals in this battle are arguably harder to find even in higher realm conflicts. In later realms, the difference in cultivation level often creates absolute suppression. But at the core formation realm, it's a playing field where every trump card and every miscalculation can determine life and death. On one side is our protagonist Hanli, a man who rose from adversity, always hiding his true strength and full of mysteries. On the other is Wen Tianren, the direct disciple of the Six Paths demonic lord, an arrogant and cruel demonic genius. Wen Tianren's title as the strongest core formation cultivator in the scattered star seas might include a degree of flattery. But the strength he displayed in his battle with Hanli was more than enough to prove he stood at the pinnacle of the core formation realm. This video will analyze this great adversary in depth and recreate their world-shaking battle from the original novel. The first mention of Wen Tianren comes from a conversation between two protectors of the Star-defying coalition. They reveal that he practices various dual cultivation techniques, a cultivation path that requires a large number of female cultivators to act as human cauldrons for him to absorb their essence. That is why, whenever he appears, he is always surrounded by a flock of beautiful women. This cruel yet hedonistic lifestyle of the demonic path truly makes one feel both contempt and envy. We all know the joke that women only affect the speed of Hanli's sword drawing, but for Wen Tianren, women actually increased the speed of his cultivation. On this point alone, the two were complete opposites. When Wen Tianren officially makes his appearance, the scene is set with Yuan Yao on a small island, performing the soul return art in an attempt to save her senior sister's life. To ensure the process went undisturbed, Yuan Yao had invited Hanli to stand guard. At the same time, Wen Tianren happened to be passing by with Ziling. Here, we must clarify the complex relationship between Ziling and Wen Tianren. Ziling was the #1 beauty of the scattered star seas, while Wen Tianren was the strongest core formation cultivator and a notorious lecher. Naturally, Ziling became the target he coveted most. Most other women came to him willingly, so things easily obtained bored him. In contrast, Ziling's cold and indifferent attitude strongly stimulated the conqueror's mentality of a man accustomed to being at the top. The baseless rumors that Ziling had lost her virginity to Wen Tianren are completely false. To win the beauty's favor, Wen Tianren showed off his vast knowledge. He had studied and deduced the patterns of the ghost fog, the most mysterious natural phenomenon in the scattered star seas. Knowing these patterns was one thing, but he used this knowledge to impress a girl, taking Ziling to a place where the ghost fog was about to erupt for a thrilling experience. This level of showmanship is truly impressive. As Wen Tianren and Ziling sat in their ornate chariot, followed by over a dozen beautiful Foundation establishment female attendants, they suddenly noticed dark clouds gathering and lightning flashing over a small island in the distance. This phenomenon usually suggests the appearance of a great treasure. But with his knowledge, Wen Tianren recognized at a glance that someone was performing the soul return art. Though he knew it wasn't a treasure, his curiosity about who could perform such an ancient art was piqued. He and Ziling descended from the chariot. At this moment, Wen Tianren's true appearance is described for the first time, dressed in coarse linen robes, wearing a tall hat, about 27 to 28 years old, with a handsome and refined face, a golden glint flashing between his eyebrows. His appearance and attire alone exuded an extraordinary aura. Just as he stepped down, Wen Tianren suddenly sensed a powerful spiritual sense, no weaker than his own, coming from Hanli, who was hiding and standing guard. Despite his refined appearance, Wen Tianren was, in essence, a narrow-minded, cruel, and ruthless person. He had always considered himself the unparalleled #1 at the core formation level. Now, someone of the same realm possessed a spiritual sense equal to his own. Jealousy and killing intent immediately surged within him. With his petty mindset, Wen Tianren decided he had to eliminate Hanli, partly to remove a potential rival, and partly to show off his power in front of the beauty. Han Li, who cultivated the great development art, also instantly sensed Wen Tuanren's presence. His spiritual sense was already comparable to an early nascent soul cultivator's, a point of great pride for him. He never expected to meet someone at the core formation realm with a spiritual sense that could match his. A brief probe was immediately repelled by the opponent. Though he recognized the other party was extremely formidable, Han Li felt no fear. Having survived countless life-and-death battles, he believed that with his arsenal of ancient treasures and spirit medicines, he could retreat even if he couldn't win. Seeing Wen Tianren flying towards him, Han Li took the initiative to fly up and intercept him to avoid disturbing Yuan Yao. At this time, he was still using a disguise technique to hide his identity. Interestingly, the first time they met, Ziling used her real face while Han Li used a fake one. This time, the situation was completely reversed, perhaps foreshadowing their complicated future relationship. Upon meeting, Wen Tianren immediately questioned Han Li's name and asked about the person performing the technique. Han Li realized his opponent was not only powerful but also incredibly knowledgeable, more formidable than he had imagined. He didn't answer and instead advised him to leave. Wen Tianren sneered, "I came here for you." He assumed Han Li was a rogue cultivator and arrogantly gave him two choices. 1. Join the Star-defying coalition as his subordinate, or 2. Be killed by him on the spot. Ziling, standing beside him, clarified his identity. Young Master One is the top disciple of the Six Paths Extreme Sage. Although Han Li was mentally prepared, he was still shocked by his opponent's background. Seeing Han Li's surprise, Wen Tianren wore a smug expression, but Han Li replied, "So, it is the young master of the Star-defying coalition. But as for your two choices, I don't like either. How about I kill you instead?" This was not Han Li being arrogant. He had sensed an irreconcilable killing intent from his opponent. With his cautious nature, he knew that even if he submitted, he would eventually be seen as a threat and eliminated. Hearing this, Wen Tianren was enraged to the point of madness. He let out a sinister laugh and then suddenly spat out a beam of blue light, striking directly at Han Li. This blue light, a cone-shaped magical tool, was incredibly fast. But Han Li was all too familiar with such surprise attacks. He instantly deployed the protective shield from his Jade Rui ancient treasure. The shield had just appeared when the blue light struck, knocking him back several meters. Without hesitation, Han Li counterattacked. His 24 azure bamboo cloud swords swarmed out, while he simultaneously summoned the 5 elements annulus for defense. Seeing the flying swords, Wen Tianren was unfazed. He gently waved a small purple flag, and his body vanished into a cloud of purple mist. Han Li directed his 24 swords to execute the sword shadow light-splitting art, turning them into 96 phantoms that stabbed into the mist, but to no effect. He then merged the swords into 2 giant blades and slammed them down with the force of a mountain. This time, an ancient bronze shield emerged from the mist, blocking the attack. Seeing this, Han Li summoned tens of thousands of his mutated gold-devouring beetles. This should have been a fatal move, but Wen Tianren simply sneered. As the beetles made contact with the mist, countless golden threads shot out. The moment they touched the threads, the beetles died in droves as if meeting their ultimate counter. The beetles' bodies were so tough that ordinary magical treasures could hardly harm them, yet they were being destroyed with ease. Heartbroken, Han Li hastily recalled his beetles while using the Hualing ancient treasure to control the golden threads. They revealed their true form, slender needle-type magical tools. However, they quickly merged into a small golden sword, broke free, and shot towards him. Han Li then brought out the Azure Clarity Needle's magical tool to deal with them. Countless azure threads flew out, clashing with the golden threads. Seeing this treasure, Wen Tianren was shocked and questioned Han Li's relationship with its former owner, cultivator Tian Yi. Not missing the opportunity, Han Li pushed his treasure to its limit, completely suppressing the golden threads. Enraged at being ignored, Wen Tianren prepared to unleash the number 1 demonic art in the scattered star seas, the 6 extreme demon vanquishing art. Sensing the immense danger as the world's spiritual energy gathered towards the mist, Han Li finally decided to use his own ultimate move, the Een Demon Slash. This was an upgraded version of the Blood Spirit Drill, which condensed his essence blood to be released in a single, devastating blow. A black blade of light, several meters wide, slashed down. when Tianren hastily used the bronze shield to block, but both the shield and the mist were cleaved in two. He should have died, but at the critical moment, he used the Grand Dissolution technique, a secret art of nascent soul cultivators, sacrificing one of his arms to escape death. After losing an arm, when Tianren reappeared, his eyes filled with hatred. Behind him, 6 massive, hazy demonic shadows emerged, exuding a ferocious aura. These were the phantoms of the 6 apex saint ancestors created by his demonic art. He quickly reattached his arm and prepared to attack. However, he had met the ultimate counter to demonic arts, Han Li's devil-repelling divine lightning. Han Li raised his hand, and a golden light flashed. 2 demonic shadows instantly disintegrated. 2 more bolts of golden light destroyed 2 more shadows. This was completely beyond Tianren's expectations. He hurriedly tried to recall the remaining shadows while throwing a massive bell magical tool to trap Han Li, who struggled to fend off its soundwave attacks with his Hualing treasure. Realizing the divine lightning was his nemesis, Tianren was determined to kill Han Li at any cost. A small golden horn emerged from his forehead, and 8 ancient mirrors flew out. Ziling cried out the name of the treasure in horror. The 8 Gates golden light mirrors, once known as the most powerful offensive magical treasure in the scattered star seas, even though Tianren's was just a replica. A beam of golden light shot from the horn, reflecting between the 8 mirrors, its power multiplying with each reflection. Finally, 8 beams of golden light as wide as bowls shot towards Han Li. All of his defensive layers were shattered in an instant. Left with no choice, Han Li used his wind and thunder wings to dodge. A chase of teleportation began. Han Li continuously blinked to ambush, but Tianren was just as fast. Finally, Tianren used the mirrors to create a light formation, disrupting the space, nullifying the wind and thunder wings, and trapping Han Li in a cage of light. Trapped, Han Li attacked the cage with all his might but couldn't end it. He had to pour all his spiritual power into his Jade Rui, upgrading its shield to the highest level to resist. Tianren then turned the 8 mirrors into 8 fireballs, spat his essence blood onto them, and surrounded Han Li, beginning a refining process. To maintain the shield, Han Li's spiritual power consumption increased 5 to 6 times. Tianren calculated that he could only last for an hour. The detail he missed was that Han Li possessed 10,000-year spirit medicine, allowing him to instantly replenish his spiritual power. After several hours, Tianren suspected this, but he had already consumed too much power and didn't dare to release Han Li. He had to continue the battle of attrition. Several days later, just as Tianren was nearing exhaustion and considering capturing Yuan Yao to threaten Han Li, the ghost fog arrived. All 3 were swept into the land of the Yin underworld, a place where no spiritual power could be used. Here, as Han Li was leading Mei Ning across the violent Wind Mountain, he encountered Tianren again. Outside, their battle was a close call. But in the Yinming land, where cultivation was nullified, Han Li's worldly swordsmanship was far superior. The moment they met, Han Li sent a flying sword at Tianren's chest. Although he wore inner armor, Han Li's next sword accurately pierced his throat, ending the life of the brightest star of the demonic path. Tianren, the man who believed himself to be the strongest below the nascent soul realm, died in such an unexpected way, a truly lamentable end. This battle was a perfect showcase of counters. Yin Demon Slash countered the purple mist, the golden needles countered the gold-devouring beetles, the devil-repelling divine lightning countered the 6 extreme demonic arts. Even when countered, Tianren successfully trapped Han Li with his strategy. If Han Li hadn't possessed the 10,000-year spirit medicine, he would have been refined into ash. Alas, there are no what-ifs. Fate, in the end, sided with Han Li. This video was quite long, partly because this battle was incredibly intense, and partly because I added a lot of analysis and commentary. If you enjoyed it, please support me by liking, sharing, and subscribing. The next video might be about Old Devil Chi or the 6 Paths Extreme Sage. Their battles with Han Li were just as dramatic and hold many secrets. Don't forget to follow the channel to see it. See you all in the next video.